Greetings and welcome to the TED in Your Head podcast. I am your host, Ted Moreno, certified hypnotherapist and explorer of possibility. And I'm very happy to have as my guest today, Rohini Walker. Hi, Rohini. How's it going?
Hi, Ted. I'm well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be
Uh,
having this conversation.
Very happy to have you, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. So, I'm going to read a short little bio for Rohini. Rohini Walker is an Indian-born British writer, mentor, and consultant who has been planted in the California Mojave Desert for over 10 years. And here we are spreading your seeds, right, Rohini? She works one-to-one with people exploring the intersection between decoloniality and the indigenous essential qualities of the soul through the lenses of myth, nature, and inner alchemy. Her group container, Root Plus Rise, focuses on these topics, offering transformational reflection and healing to individuals as well as companies and organizational leaders. Rohini is also the co-founder and editor of the arts and cultural print periodical Luna Arcana. And that's how I first heard about you. Your website describes Luna Arcana as an arts and literary print periodical centered on alchemy, myth, and ecology, contextualized in the wilderness of the American Southwest. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of Luna Arcana, because I love anything having to do with the desert. And you're out there in the Joshua Tree area, right?
Yes, I'm here with Luna Arcana's other creator, um, Martine. We both live here in the desert, and yeah, so we've just came together to. It's the desert is our muse, and we created this kind of speaking to that, all of the inspirations that the desert evokes in us.
Excellent. And Martine is my cousin and such an awesome and talented individual. In fact, that's some of his artwork up there. And I believe that's the cover of one of the issues.
Our
And
first issue, yeah.
the first issue, and it's, boy, I said, I have to have that, and he gave me a print. So I'm a huge fan. I'm a subscriber. I love everything having to do with Luna Arcana, including I have the stickers like stuck here and there. So yeah, I'm just a huge fan. You also have an email newsletter called Letters from Luna. And so in your newsletter dated April 27th, 2025, you wrote a piece titled Committing to Digestion in the Information Age. And I just thought that was a brilliant article. I loved it. It resonated so deeply with me because this is a message that I often communicate to my clients, but the way you articulated it, the writing, the even the poetry was so good. And at that point, I said, I have to reach out to this person and talk to her and have her as a guest on my podcast. And so here you are. But I have to tell you, what really grabbed me was one of the very first paragraphs, and it was accompanied by a photo of blooming prickly pear with these wonderful yellow blossoms, and I have the exact same thing in my backyard. And this is what you wrote. It's my favorite time of year here, not least because of these magnificent beings popping up. The body relates to them with the expansive opening of pure, clear delight. The breath deepens, the heart opens, and I receive the quiet instruction to offer them slow, sacred attention as an act of reciprocity of gratitude for their presence, their beingness in the world. And boy, that just grabbed me. And I said, whatever this article is about, it's going to be a good one because I really believe that what you wrote is very much an antidote or part of an antidote for what ails us in our modern society today. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, yeah, I feel like it is an antidote, or at least my perspective on that. Yeah, and I love that it resonated with you in the way that it did. It's my own kind of approach to what an antidote could be in my own work. So yeah, it may work for some, it may not for others. So yeah, yeah.
Well, it works for me. Presence to the alchemy and magic of nature, like just standing there and feeling gratitude for the blooming of a prickly pear cactus. Like That's just so fundamental, yet I don't know how many people take the time to do something like that, you know. Okay, so before we get into that article, I'd like to ask you about the genesis of Luna Arcana and the inspiration for starting it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so we started Luna Arcana back in 2015. I moved to the desert from London in the UK 2013 with my husband, and then um, along with two other people, including Martine, we there was a kind of pre incarnation of Luna Arcana called the Raven, which was kind of like a pilot, if you like. And we created that as the the first version. And then for various reasons, the Raven had to be dissolved. And then Martine and I continued on, and then we started Luna Arcana in 2015. And yeah, for me, my reason for starting the Raven and then Luna kind of was coming to the desert from London, two completely different worlds and universes. So, and just coming here, I was just inspiration was just flowing out of me as this landscape does. And when I arrived here from London, I was feeling very, I knew I wanted to write more and be, open up to my creative capacities more, but it was all completely stifled in that environment. And it was not encouraged at all. Whereas when I came here, it was just, I'd have to really force myself to sit down and write, and I didn't really even. Whereas here, it just wanted to come through. It just
Hmm.
wanted to flow through, and it was really just my kind of being with the land and connecting with the land and sort of giving language to my experience of what I was having, which was completely new to me.
Hmm.
So so I started kind of writing, and I started a little blog thing, and people were like, why don't we, do it more formally as a publication? And this is back when Joshua Tree and the High Desert was still very much, still very much in its innocence phase. I like to
Yeah.
put it, it was just everything was much more experimental, a bit more rough around the edges. And so we started The Raven, and it was my writing, and then I was meeting with all of so many inspiring people here who were also wanting to express their experience of the desert in all the different ways that they were kind of manifesting that through their art and music and all, poetry. um so it started really as that, and and then that's what Luna Arcana became. And Luna Arcana, the name, because the moon is such a big potent presence here. And also the moon has a big symbolic presence in my own life, and in my own personal kind of archetypal world. But here it was just such a bright presence, and it just called you into all of its mysteries and all of its unseen esoterica. And it took me ages, because we were like, okay, we're going to restart the Raven, but I don't know what the name's going to be, Martine. And he was like, okay, well, we'll just wait. And then it came through, and I was like, okay, I think this is the one. So yeah, so it just speaks to all of these different elemental experiences of what the desert is. Yeah.
Awesome. And I just happen to have the latest release, which is an anthology, which is
Yeah.
just beautiful. It's just so beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. And speaking of the work that you do, let's get into the article that you posted online, Committing to Digestion in the Information Age. So let's talk about that. And I'm going to read again a paragraph from that article that kind of encapsulates your message. The incessant consumption of information has become hyper addictive and completely normalized. The analogy that comes to mind is of going to an all you can eat buffet, eating as much as we possibly can, and then going on to the next one and the next one, and stopping for snacks along the way. All consumption, no digestion. Such a great analogy. So, Rohini, what is your message with this article?
I think my fundamental message with this is really the power of pausing. to digest, to assimilate before moving on to the next. And I think, we are slowly, from what I see anyway, um, we are slowly losing the power to just, we consume information, imbibe information, and then we move on to the next thing and we move on to the next thing. And there's no integration happening. And it keeps us in this very, it keeps the nervous system in a very um, hyper aroused state. So the fundamental message, I think, is okay, I've just read this article, or I've just scrolled on Instagram, or I've just listened or watched some news or whatever it is. Can I now put the phone down or close the laptop or whatever it is and just be with life and pause and not be in the consumption mode? Just take that time to assimilate and also to release what is not correct for me and my system. So it's this very, pausing is like a huge part of what I do in my practice. It's just such a simple thing, but it's a really powerful thing. And so yeah, I've just eaten a really big meal. Can I can I now take some time to digest that? Give my system some time to slowly assimilate and digest and release.
One of the reasons that that article resonated so deeply with me is because I work a lot with people that have digestive issues, right? And so the organic language of not being able to digest something or overconsumption is part of the work that I do with my clients. And you mentioned the idea of cool heads and warm bellies, and how very often we have hot heads and cool bellies or cold bellies. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, so my kind of reference point for that is Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. And I mentioned those in the piece that we're talking about. And in both of those systems of health, um, a cool head is prescribed as an optimal state, and a warm belly. The cool head, because if we, so like you mentioned, we are in the kind of inverse, we're in the hot head, warm belly. So when we're hot head, cool belly, and when we're in that kind of colder state in the body, the digestive fire, the Agni, as they call it in Ayurveda, is being neglected. And without the digestive fire is everything. It's our life force. It's how we do in the world. It's not just our digestion, but it's how we create, how we act, how we relate. All of it comes from this really deep, warm belly experience. But because we're constantly in the head and not pausing to assimilate, we have this hot head, warm head state where all of the information is up here and swirling around up here. And so all of the heat is gathering in the head area. And then we get things like insomnia, anxiety, dissociation.
Hmm.
A lot of my work involves somatic work. So, we're just not in the body at all. And we get things like, and then we try to push through that by over caffeinating ourselves and all of the other ways in which we push through the organic experience we're having. And it's because our heads are so hot.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah,
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's fine.
we all have the experience of consuming news and getting angry about something, right? We're like, how could they do
Especially
that?
these days, yeah.
Yes. How could they do that? And then also the experience of consuming news and getting anxiety, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next, right? And so, that fight flight response deadens those fires, extinguishes those fires, or inhibits them, right? And now digestion stops because, that's part of the fight flight response. We have, food sitting in there not digesting, right? And that leads to a whole host of problems. So that is such an awesome analogy. So, how do you suggest that we cultivate cool heads and warm bellies?
Well, so I guess I've already mentioned like a foundational. piece, which is the pausing, that taking, and that can feel really, really unsafe and dysregulating for a lot of people just to start pausing. But that's a foundational one. And then it is to kind of, so if so this kind of goes along with the pause, is okay, I've just read the news or listened to the news or whatever it is. And so can I now put the phone down, um, and just be with my experience of what's happening in my system, somatically, energetically, in my nervous system. What are the emotions that are coming up? What's the physical sensational experience? And that allows us to get back in the body and start that energy flow in the body, in the belly, that warm belly experience happening. And we don't have to like everything that we're experiencing, but just to be with our experience instead of trying to move on to the next thing or to avoid our experience, because that again creates this hot head state
Hmm.
when things. So this process of just becoming more and more familiar and feeling safer and safer to go, okay, now I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling anxious or I'm, catastrophizing into the future. Can I just be with that? So it's bringing presence and embodiment into our day-to-day experience. Um, and then sitting with and this is a somatic practice that I do with clients, but just allowing the body to feel the safety of the now, of this
Hmm.
now moment, because a lot of the time, what we're consuming these days is so dysregulating and creating so much anxiety and fear. So can we just bring ourselves physically back into this moment and let the body feel like coming back into the body and feeling the actual physical safety of this moment, like letting my body feel this chair I'm sitting on and like looking around and attuning to this moment in a really somatic way. And so these are
Yeah.
just simple ways to start doing that.
And so there are just very solid and definite parallels between how you work with your clients and how I work with mine as far as getting out of the head, into the body, feeling what you're feeling, allowing it to arise like everything does and pass away like everything does, not getting attached to the story. So just really, really profound, fundamental somatic work, which also involves, at least for me, getting out, walking, getting
Yeah.
outside, right? Feeling the earth beneath my feet, looking at clouds, trees, cactus, and I have a bunch in my backyard. So those kind of things I think are very healing as well. Um, Cultivating cool heads and warm bellies. I love that. So how do you work with people in a mentorship or consultant capacity, Rohini?
So when I work with individuals within a mentorship container, I sort of have like 3 months or 6 months, or I'm just about to introduce a year. Some people have asked for, so 3 months, 6 months, a year, 12 months containers. And I work in a variety of ways. So a lot of my work, well, all of my work has the foundational base of somatic experiencing and what is this kind of emerging branch within somatic experiencing called ecosomatics, which is just the name that's been given to something you and I have probably been doing, and a lot of people listening have probably been doing organically, which is really feeling into how our bodies belong to our larger, natural environment, our ecological identity. So, like, really grounding into the somatic experience of belonging to nature and
Hmm.
being a part of nature, not separate from, which is a big wound of colonialism. So my work is grounded in
Can I
somatic.
interrupt you?
Yeah,
Can you say that again? Because I think that is so
just in
important.
passing.
Can you say that
Just a big
again?
wound of, yeah. So I mean, the way I've experienced it and the
Mhm.
way so many people that I work with have experienced it is like one of the fundamental colonial wounds is this fracture, this sense of separation and this artificial sense of separation from nature, from our natural, from our ecological identity. That nature is something, even the word environment is kind of misleading. It speaks like something out there that's separate from me.
Mm,
But I'm inherently connected to and belong to my natural environment. Um, and of course, other things come into play here, like issues of displacement and all of these things. But essentially, to start repairing that rupture of colonialism that has created such a sense of separation that then creates this isolation within ourselves. And then it's all about me and mine and my little kind of small little pocket of people who I need to keep safe in order for me to be safe. And
mm,
we're completely disconnected from the larger interdependence.
mm.
And I mean, and this is fundamental to indigenous wisdom traditions from around the world, this sense of larger belonging.
Yes.
Um, and so, and then we become fragmented from that somatic felt sense experience of like what I'm doing to my body is inherently also going into the larger cycle, the larger unfolding, the larger systems that I'm part of, and vice versa. Whatever's going into the earth and the soil is also going into my system and my body and my soil, my again going to the digestive system.
Hmm.
So yeah, so this kind of really tuning into this larger sense of who we are and what we belong to.
Mm. Yeah, that is really profound. So let me ask you another question. And this is really the question that I've been looking forward to asking you. On your website, in your description of who you are and what you do as a mentor and consultant, you talk about rekindling a radical connection with the anima mundi, the world soul. What does that mean?
The world soul, the anima mundi. So the anima mundi means, yeah, the world soul. It means the world soul or the soul of the world. And it's a term that's taken from Greek philosophy, um, originally Greek philosophy, and then a little bit into Roman philosophy and mythology as well. And it speaks to this sense of the world being ensouled, imbued with soul, imbued with an animated spirit and a soul. And I think it was Plato who first kind of coined the term anima mundi, but I just, it is, and even back then there was this understanding of, within the European classical traditions of this belonging and this aliveness in all of the manifest world. And then this speaks to animism, which is a huge part of my practice. And animist traditions are present, and again, in all indigenous cultures, and in my culture of origin in India, it's very animist informed. And again, this sense of aliveness, this sense of being in relationship with all that we are a part of. And this relationality, again, is a really key aspect of decolonial work.
Mm,
And not just relationality with the world around us, but with all of the things that are happening within us, our psychological complexes and all of the different archetypes that are showing up within our psyche and our experience. So being in relationship to all of it. And so that is my experience of the anima mundi. That is my experience of like a world that is imbued with soul.
mm. Yeah, I when I heard that term, and I've heard that term before, but doing a little bit of work getting ready for this podcast, it occurred to me that that term was in a song by the Police, but
Oh, is it? I
actually,
didn't know that.
it's actually not. Sting uses the term in I think Synchronicity, the song Synchronicity. He says Spiritus Mundi,
Oh, yeah.
which is a little bit different. So I'll let our listeners look up the distinction between those two terms. But let me ask you, what message do you have for those who wish to rekindle a connection with Anima Mundi, the world soul. What message do you have for those people that want to establish or rekindle that connection?
I think it's first of all, primarily it's again the risk of repeating myself is to get comfortable with being in the space of no distraction, no like stimulation from like taking in information and being outside in nature and just by yourself with no phone. We're not documenting us being in nature so we can put it in a story on Instagram. Just being like we're not here, it's not performative. We're just here and pausing and being. And then the first inroad into cultivating our connection or remembering our connection with the anima mundi is to, tune in from the body and start listening, just deep listening. And, I call it, and not just me, but there's deep listening and sacred attention. These are two kind of, they go hand in hand. And it's like, what am I listening to? And you're just listening and receiving. And for me, and just offering our sacred attention in that, as we spoke to, as you kind of read that quote at the beginning, as an act of reciprocity, it's like we're offering our presence so that whatever it is, so that the aliveness, the animate spirit of our natural world can start to communicate with us. And it doesn't always, and very rarely happen through language and
Hmm.
linear language.
Hmm.
We receive communication through many, many different ways.
Hmm.
And becoming open to that because we've become, as a culture, so trained to only receive communication through the spoken word. Um, and so just becoming aware of how everything is communicating always, and how can I open up to that and start becoming um, feeling safe to step out of the bounds of kind of logic, if you
Yes.
like, the left
Awesome.
brain. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that can be repeated enough. So thank you for repeating it. And it will be repeated a lot more times by both of us, right? Okay, so how can people find out more about you and connect with you on a more consistent and deeper basis?
So the best way to, to stay connected with me is to join my newsletter. You can
Mhm.
join from my website. I've just moved everything onto Substack, so they can just, sign up and then it will connect them to my newsletter. And I'm just about to start podcast, which is kind of in the works and coming soon. But all of that will be shared on my in my newsletter. I've recently stepped off all social media,
Mhm.
which feels so good.
Mhm.
So you won't you can I'm still have a profile on Instagram, but I'm not, I don't really engage on it. So my newsletter is the first port of call. Um, and then yeah, and then everything that I'm doing and all of the things that all of the things that we've spoken to and more I share about in my newsletter.
So they can access your website at rohiniwalker.com. Is that right?
Yes, rohiniwalker.com. Yeah.
Okay. And if they want to find out more about Luna Arcana, that's lunaarcana.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So people can engage with you in, I guess, a few different ways by going to your website. They can subscribe to your newsletter,
Hmm.
or people can kind of be up on what's going on and subscribe to letters from Luna
Hmm.
on lunaarcana.com, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great, great. So I have one more question to ask you. Would you come back again as a guest on my podcast, maybe at the end of the summer?
I would love to. Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, there's so much more to say on all this. So yeah, I would absolutely love to.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
like to hear a lot more about your ideas about decoloniality and what that involves. I find that a fascinating concept. So, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. This is such a fascinating conversation, and really, we just scratched the surface of many things we could talk about. So, I'm greatly appreciative of your time and your expertise and the wonderful things that you've shared with us today. So, there you go, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Of course, you could also watch this on YouTube at Ted A. Moreno. So thanks to Rohini. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll connect again soon. Bye now.